Hi, and welcome to Supernatural by Design. Today's topic will be on 9/11 and its connection to the number 11. So, what makes 9/11 so significant? Was it a conspiracy by our own government? Jihadists carrying out their religious ambitions? A combination of both? Or maybe it was a major U.S. event that was uniquely similar to other historical dates in U.S. history. So what if we could uncover that unique similarity? And what if it meant something bigger because of that fact? Would you look at 9/11 differently? I want to take us on a journey, and that journey starts with the number 11. But first, we will need a small foundation on the number 11, so let's begin. The number 11 can be found in many types of number patterns. For example, 11 can be 1 and 10, 2 and 9, 3 and 8, 4, 7, 6, 5, 9, 2, or even numbers like 128 or 344. You just simply add the numbers together, and it's pretty straightforward. So with that said, let's take a look at some dates in American history that share a unique connection to the number 11. Let's start with Christopher Columbus. Christopher Columbus set sail on 8/3 of 1492. And in this example, I wanted to show you how you add the day plus the month to get 11. So for this one, 8 plus 3 equals 11. Okay, let's move on to the next date in American history, and you'll see the same connection. For example, the Declaration of Independence was 7/4/1776. You had the Emancipation Proclamation on 1/1 of 1863. 11/11 of 1917 was the end of World War I. And on 9/2 of 1945 was the end of World War II. 56 years later is 9/11 of 2001. And if you've noticed the common connection so far, then you might see a connection for the date of 8/21 of 2017. That was the day that a total solar eclipse went all the way across America. We will discuss this date in another video because it is a whole lot deeper than just a total solar eclipse. But for right now, I want to continue with 9/11, so let's explore further. So what makes 9/11 even more unique about the number 11? Well, how about the date itself? First, it was the 11th day of the month. Secondly, if you add the day plus the month, 9 plus 11, you get 20, or 11. And as you saw from previous examples of American history, that follows that same unique pattern. Thirdly, 9/11 is also the 254th day of the year. 2 plus 5 plus 4 equals 11. Lastly, it was the 111th day until 2002. Also, a couple of unique traits about the city and the state that 9/11 took place in is that New York was the 11th state to the Union, and New York City is 11 letters long. Now, let's take a look at the World Trade Center towers, the North Tower and the South Tower, World Trade Center 1 and World Trade Center 2. I mean, even side by side, they look like an 11. Identical buildings, like twins, hence why they were dubbed the Twin Towers, which is interesting because this would be foreshadowed by two major celestial events that took place in the constellation of Gemini. The twins, a constellation associated with war. However, we will get to that point later. So let's stay focused on the buildings themselves because there are some unique instances of the number 11 associated with the buildings in the very fine details. For example, the North Tower was 110 stories tall, which is an example of 1 plus 10 equals 11. And the same can be said about the South Tower because it too was 110 stories tall. So notice the 11 here again. It is also important to add here that the World Trade Center 7 Tower was 47 stories tall, which is 4 plus 7 equals 11. And why is the World Trade Center 7 Tower important? Because these three buildings would be the only buildings to completely collapse as a result from this tragic attack. And all three, their stories add to the number 11. Now, how about the planes that attacked on 9/11? Now, what I think is really interesting about the very first plane to attack on 9/11 was Flight 11. And as you see, it is an 11. Now, let's look at the people on board. On board, there were 81 passengers and 11 crew, if you notice the 11 crew. But when you combine those two, it makes the total 92, which is an 11. Okay, now let's look at the second flight. The second flight crashed into the South Tower, and it was Flight 175, which is an example of 1111. But on that plane, there were 56 passengers and 9 crew. Notice the 56 passengers. When you combine them, it makes a total of 65, which is 6 plus 5, and that's 11. But hold on, let's compare these two flights side by side. If you notice, Flight 11 had 81 passengers on board. Well, 8 plus 1 is 9. Flight 175 had 56 passengers on board. 5 plus 6 is the 11, which points to 9/11. And interestingly enough, the crew is the same way. On Flight 11, you had 11 crew, and on Flight 175, you had 9 crew. Again, there's 9/11, or 11. So when Flight 175 crashed into the South Tower collapsed at 10:28 a.m., which is an 11. And the South Tower was struck at 9:02 a.m., and it collapsed 56 minutes later. And I think it's amazing to see how many 11s are involved in the details of the buildings themselves, from the planes and how they impact to the people on board, to even the collapse times of the buildings. Lastly, the World Trade Center 7 Tower. Remember, this was one of the buildings to completely collapse due to the destruction of the Twin Towers. Well, this building plus 10 other buildings were considered significantly damaged due to the indirect damage taken. And there again, you have an 11. And subsequently, you had 2 other planes involved in the 9/11 attacks. Flight 77, or 7 times 11, which flew into the Pentagon, and Flight 93, which crashed into a field as a result of the hostages attempting to take over the plane. These 2 planes I believe to play an important role. However, we will discuss these in a later video. The connection with the number 11 and 9/11 doesn't end there. In fact, let's take a look at the celestial events of 2001. The total solar and lunar eclipses, as well as the summer, fall, winter, and spring solstices and equinoxes, are all related to 11 in relation to the date of 9/11 in astonishing ways. Let's start with the spring equinox of 2001. It occurred on March 20th, which was 175 days from 9/11. Then you come to the summer solstice on June 21st. It was 83 days away from 9/11. The fall equinox on September 22nd, 11 days from 9/11. And the winter solstice was 101 days away. So as you can see, 3 out of the 4 dates given were related to the number 11. Now let's move on to the total lunar and solar eclipses of 2001. Let's begin with the lunar eclipse. The lunar eclipse happened on 1/9 of 2001. This date was 245 days away from 9/11. It happened on a Tuesday, as did 9/11, and it was the third of 3 total lunar eclipses in a row. In fact, from the very first total lunar eclipse to the third one was 11 months and 20 days. That's an example of the 11/11. Next, the total solar eclipse of 2001. Well, it happened on 6/21, which was a summer solstice, and was 83 days from the date of 9/11. It was also the 56th total solar eclipse to land on either a solstice or an equinox. Since 0 AD, it was the 19th to land on a summer solstice, and in the last 2,000 years, there have been a total of 1,234 total solar eclipses. So, if you take how many have landed on a solstice and equinox, 56, and you divide that by 1,234, well, it makes it a 4.54% chance of something like that occurring. That's amazing. Lastly, what makes the total solar and lunar eclipses of 2001 interesting is how about this? They both occurred in the constellation of Gemini. And if you're familiar with the zodiac, you would know that the constellation of Gemini is the twins. You see, the North and South Tower were also nicknamed the twins. I believe that because the total lunar and solar eclipses both happened in the constellation of Gemini, that this was actually a foreshadow of the event to come. So as you can see, even rare astronomical events in the sky with the total lunar and solar eclipses, as well as the solstices and equinoxes, were all related to the number 11 relative to the date of 9/11 itself. And personally, I think this is not coincidental. So in future videos, we will discover even more patterns all tied to 11s with other significant American dates, but also with mathematics, physics, and interestingly enough, even the Bible. We will uncover how the number 11 plays a major role in a whole host of various ways, from the nature of our reality to our unique relationship with God, from Adam to major events in Israel's history to the deep and prophetic connection of 11s involved with Noah's flood, and yes, even Jesus the Messiah himself. So be sure you keep up with all the exciting videos to come. Please like, subscribe, and share, and don't forget to post your thoughts and comments. I'd love to hear what you think. Thank you, and have a blessed day.